Well, welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. I am your host, Brittany Ford, holistic nutritionist, biohacker, women's health advocate, new mom, all the things like that, content creator. And I am thrilled that you are listening to another episode. And today is a really big episode where I dive into the world of clean medicine, clean medications. What does that even mean? I have the founder of Genexa on the podcast, and we dive into how do you make medicine clean? And why hasn't medicine always kind of been clean? Why are there all of these extra chemicals added into medicine that we're just kind of used to? Fascinating story with Genexa. I'm super excited for you to listen. This is what I have for my kid. So I have a 6-month-old baby right now, and we haven't used it. But like I talk about in this episode, it is really nice, and it's gives me a peace of mind to have something like this for pain, for fever in my back pocket if I were to ever need it. Now, mind you, there's a bunch of things that I would do before ever using something with acetaminophen in it. But like I said, like having this in my little medicine cabinet that I have in case I need it one day is the best and really just makes me feel better. I do want to read the ingredients to you before we dive into this episode so that you're just aware and as an idea. So this is the kids' pain and fever. It is acetaminophen. Like I said, it's 160 milligrams per 5 mils. It is a pain reliever. It is a fever reducer, and it is made with the same active ingredient as children's Tylenol, oral suspension grape. This is the organic blueberry flavor, and it has the same effective active ingredient, but without the artificial fillers. So the ingredients in this are acetaminophen, organic agave syrup, organic blueberry flavor, natural citrus extract, natural flavor, and purified water, and that is all. It is also a B Corp company. It's certified gluten-free, certified vegan. And like I said, it's got the organic flavoring in it. What's really cool as well is on the other side here, you can see of this packaging, you can see it says people over everything. And then below it has a little paragraph that says, we think you should feel good about what makes you feel better. That's why we make medicine with the same active ingredients you need, but without the artificial ones you don't. It's what people deserve. So that is what we get into today in this episode. I get to sit down with David and really just pick his brain on why he started this company, why he co-founded it, what was it like back then, 8 years ago, having this vision, and what does the market look like now? And where are they going? What other sectors are they going to dive into? What other products are they thinking about bringing to the market? And it was just a really inspiring story being able to sit down and talk this out and hear from them. I love conversations like this because I didn't even really think it was possible to make a cleaner Tylenol, a healthier Tylenol. I didn't really think that industry and that market could really be disrupted. And I was wrong when I started learning about Genexa and seeing the products that they are putting out. And mostly when I became a parent, to be honest. Prior to this, I didn't really use and don't really use any of these products myself. But having a kid made me think, okay, maybe we should have something in case there is an emergency. What are we going to use? And then I went down the rabbit hole and found this company. They are in 45,000 stores across the US. I will link some of those for you. And I will also link my affiliate link with my discount code in the show notes and on my website. And if you're in Canada, like I am, you can get them through iherb.ca. I will also put that link. So you can buy it online. You just can't buy it in person, which is what I highly recommend that you do. And before we dive in, a shout out to Wellness. Actually, speaking of wellness, my little son, his 2 bottom teeth just popped out a couple of weeks ago. And so we are now brushing his teeth, and we are using the Wellness baby toothpaste, which is strawberry flavored. It is so nice using something that I trust, that doesn't have fluoride in it, doesn't have artificial flavors, colors, additives, preservatives, dyes, all this nonsense that you can even get in toothpaste now, especially for kids. So Wellness is a great brand. Just had them on my podcast as well. It is Wellness Mama, Katie Wells, her brand, her company. And if you use my discount code BiohackingBrittany, you can get 12% off of all of their products, including their skincare and their hair care and their toothpaste. And so I really recommend it. My husband and I use the charcoal toothpaste. My baby uses the strawberry one, and I don't have to worry. It's the best part. It's clean products. We're not adding things to our bodies that we then have to further detox and get rid of down the line. So check that out by Wellness. Enjoy this episode today with Genexa. And please leave me a review, a rating, a follow. Anything like that really helps the show to be found. And I will catch you next week for another episode. Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. Thank you for tuning in to another episode today. I am joined by David Johnson, who is the CEO and co-founder of Genexa, which I actually have one of their products right here on camera with me. This is the first clean medicine company revolutionizing the over-the-counter pharmaceutical industry. So I am going to pick David's brain. I have some spicy questions for you. I hope you're ready. You have been on quite a few of the podcasts that I love to listen to, like Dr. Taz. I think you also did Moms on Call last year. So I've heard a lot about your story and your products, and I'm just so excited to dive in today with you.
Yeah, no, happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Brittany.
Yeah. So what inspired you first and foremost to co-found Genexa?
So, I would say, Brittany, that it was a lot. Call me your nuts and seeds type of child. I was born. My friends used to always say they didn't want to come over because, you could get a Hansen spritzer versus, Coke or Sprite. We were snacking on nuts and seeds versus, Gushers or fruit roll-ups. But I think, I grew up to two naturopathic physicians, and really had the opportunity through my upbringing to really understand kind of that you are what you eat, and kind of you are what you put in your body. And for me, that really took effect, I think, when I had my own kids. And when my son was born, I had an aha moment around, he had a bad fever, and, I usually wouldn't run right to the store for the fever. I'd give it a little bit of time to see if it's gonna keep up. But, I ran right to the store, and I was kind of shocked by the unpronounceable ingredients in commonly found medicines. And, for me, it was really kind of a moment of every other industry is shifting from food to beverage to makeup and so on and so on. And, obviously the movement of organic and non-GMO and all those things, it was kind of like, why is no one trying to change this massive industry that uses all of these, ingredients, these artificial preservative flavors and sweeteners and dyes and so on and so on. So for me, it was an aha moment. And my partner, Max, the other dad, is a complete opposite side of the spectrum. And, he sneezes. It's like, what do I need? What am I giving my kid? And he was highly affected by allergies. And what he started to realize is a lot of the ingredients that he was taking in drugs was actually making his allergies worse, right? Because they have a lot of commonly found allergens. So, that kind of brought us together. And then I guess two guys with no pharma experience whatsoever had to kind of just have that passion and that purpose to survive as dads and really try to just make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty wild that you casually took on the pharmaceutical industry. Like when I first found your products and heard your story, I didn't even know it was possible to have clean medications. Like I just thought, hey, this is what we're given. They have the monopoly on the market. No one else can use those ingredients. And that's that. Like that's, what we have to deal with. So what were the next steps when you're like, oh, this is not okay. I want to do something about this. how did you even go about like sourcing acetaminophen and those types of things? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And obviously we had to learn how to do it, right? I think I always say that if I knew what it took to compete in this space, I'd probably, subtract the past 8 years of my life and do something else.
Okay.
As no pun intended, but it's really a David in a sea of Goliaths. And it's just, you have to remind yourself every day that you're doing something for kind of the greater good of everyone and other kids and other people, because this industry is being pushed to change, and others were pushed to change, and this industry needs to change. But, what we did is we literally used probably every airline mileage that we had in the account, and we flew around the country and talked to manufacturers that were in pharma manufacturing, and consistently we're told there's no way that we're going to do this. And the cost was cost prohibitive to us at the time because we didn't have money. Long story short, we ended up back in California where we were living at the time. And there was a manufacturer in Anaheim that said they would give us 6 chances because they saw that other industries were shifting. And if we can potentially figure this out together, we'll be your partner, right? So it's a win-win. Failed every single batch.
Wow.
That they gave us a free shot at, and begged for more batches. Long story short, we ended up with success there, and it was trial and error through the whole thing. But I think what we realized at the end of the day is people take medicine, if they take medicine, right, for the efficacy of the medicine. You realize that the efficacy of the medicine is anywhere from 5 to 10% of the whole product, right? The drug. Then you kind of say, you kind of have an aha moment of, anywhere from 80 to 93% of this product is just fillers and preservatives and dyes and things that, hopefully should be unnecessary. But obviously we had to prove that out to create a safe product that you could put on shelf and that was, shelf stable and could still deliver the same efficacy. So, it was a long journey of 3 years of trying to figure it all out. But, we had success.
Yeah. Amazing. So what are some of the key ingredients that you really didn't want to put in your products that you have seen with like the big brands out there?
Yeah. So dyes were definitely number one, right? Which is obviously, 8 months into this, 8 years into this business, people are finally talking about them in drugs and in everything you eat, because we should have been talking about them a long time ago because they shouldn't exist. And, on top of the dyes, it was kind of, I didn't want to use, any type of potential carcinogens from benzene to other things. I wanted to get rid of all of the things that would have an allergic reaction, in terms of, there was an MIT study done that found that kind of 93% of medicines, contain a commonly found allergen, right? So really wanted to kind of remove that, because why are we giving medicine if it can have a reaction, right? And then, titanium dioxide was a big one. So that's not allowed in Europe. So I was like, let's not do it here. But really we created this huge X list and made a wall in the office of all of these toxic ingredients that we thought were toxic. Obviously they're not. They're FDA approved to be used in any product, but kind of this short list of, the ingredients we didn't want to use, and we called it our X list. And every manufacturer needed to use them and wanted to use them, right? Because there was just no other way to do it, and we had to figure out ways around it. So I would just say that it was a lot of trial and error, but we weren't gonna, if we had to use those ingredients, we just weren't gonna do it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's completely against your mission and
right.
and what you wanted to do in the first place.
And the overall purpose, yeah.
And the overall purpose. Exactly. Toothpaste. We all need it and use it daily. But have you ever read the ingredients of your toothpaste or noticed the FDA poison warning on there? If not, keep on listening for some surprising information that your dentist might not be sharing with you. Fluoride has long been a common ingredient in many commercial toothpastes, hailed for its ability to prevent cavities. However, recent studies have raised concerns about the potential health risks associated with fluoride exposure. These risks include thyroid dysfunction, dental fluorosis, skeletal fluorosis, and potential neurotoxicity. Given these concerns, wellness offers a safer alternative that doesn't compromise our health, yet remains effective. Why choose Wellness toothpaste? It is founded by wellness mama Katie Wells, and Wellness is dedicated to natural health and uses hydroxyapatite instead of fluoride, a game changer in oral care. Here's why it is a better choice. It's fluoride free, eliminating all the health risks that I just talked about. The natural hydroxyapatite formula strengthens enamel and whitens your teeth. Plus, it's crafted from natural ingredients, gentle on gums, and eco-friendly. I love it. I use it all the time. I love the taste of it. And I don't think I will switch to anything else. So make the switch for yourself today to Wellness toothpaste. Visit wellness.com and use code biohackingbrittany for 12% off your order. That's wellness spelled WELLNESSE.com. Safeguard your health with wellness because your smile deserves the best. Do you think that you are, and maybe you've had conversations, but do you think you're on the radar of, these bigger brands like Tylenol? Do you think they know about you?
Yeah, I would say they definitely know about us. Our growth in the category, right? Look, we're still competing again with behemoths, right? And these are big people. I've been lucky enough to bring on the chairman of our board, who was, the head of, consumer pharmaceuticals back in the day at Johnson & Johnson. And he's been kind of a great mentor to me and someone that is really passionate about what we're doing, to really kind of shift the momentum in this industry. They all know about us. Sometimes they're really nice, and sometimes, they'll have their legal team reach out. But, overall we're competing with them on what they do. And all at the end of the day, we're really trying to do, Brittany, is bring what the consumer wants to the marketplace, right? It's Genexa takes it a step further about, really putting the consumer first, right? And it's what we do in everything we live and breathe, right? If you look at our package, it's people over everything. It's what drove us in the marketplace. It's what drives us internally at the business, because, if you put people first when you're creating product and you listen to the people that are going to be consuming your product, then it's kind of a win-win, right? And I think it's rare in this space that's the approach. So, that's who we are, and we're kind of different than the rest of the industry.
Yeah. But different works though, right?
Yeah.
And like you found a gap in the market. You found a gap that you saw for your own family. And then you've created a product that is really needed. And now you're on the shelves in Whole Foods, which is exactly where your target market is in Whole Foods, shopping for healthier, cleaner alternatives. And I think it's actually very inspiring to see this idea of clean medications really coming to the front. Do you think some of those big behemoth companies that you're talking about would put out something that would kind of compete with you that's a cleaner version of what they do? Or do you think they just don't see the point or the value in it yet?
It's a good question, and we're asked it a lot. And I would say that, the biggest brands and companies in the world that we're up against have big portfolios of a lot of different things, right? And it ranges from not only the consumer side of the business, but, the behind the counter business, hospitals, and, overall treatment and stuff like that. What I would say, Brittany, is like Genexa has led a shift in a category, right? Like we were the first to make clean in the space, and others are now starting to want to, put their toes into it. I've always said that, like, it's a very big space. And as an entrepreneur that really just cares about the purpose of what we're doing and the shift that I know will change, if the other guys do it right and take the steps that they need to do it right, and they actually kind of follow the trend, like, I think there's room for all of us, because this is what the consumer needs, right? It's like, you look at other food categories or beverage categories. There's a lot of different healthier sodas, and there's a lot of different, healthier breads and whatever you want. But like, I would love it, right? It would be such a win. I don't know. It might be a PR nightmare for them because, what have they been doing for 100 years? But on the flip side, like, great, put the consumer first. It would mean that we've shifted the category to really thinking through a different lens.
Yeah. I remember I was surprised when I saw Gravel came out with one that was ginger based a while ago. And I remember thinking, whoa, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, you're saying that, hey, ginger can actually help with nausea and I don't have to just take this drug that you've made.
Yep.
And I was shocked that had happened. And it could be something that is coming down the pipeline if the demand is high enough.
Well, I think Brittany, the consumer's just so much more aware. I mean, like, you're not gonna fool a parent like you, and you're not gonna fool a parent like me anymore, right? And I think it has to develop, right? And I think, the conversations that are happening right now about red dye, is led by parents, right? It's led with purpose. It's led with, there's no one that benefits from that's leading that, right? It's not, it's us, right? It's the movement. It's what we want for the greater good. It's not, it's not an industry leading it, right? The people that get hurt in that is big industry, right? But they don't really get hurt because they can just kind of conform and do better and bring an overall, clean product to the marketplace.
Yeah. Yeah. My concern would be that there would be a lot of almost like greenwashing that would happen, where they would say natural flavors, which the word natural is totally unregulated. And what does that even mean? Or like organic, but only a certain percentage of it is actually organic. Like these kind of like shortcuts that you see a lot in the food industry. Yeah. So I would be very concerned if they would actually do it like to a T of like how I would want to take it. Like your product is amazing. Like, I just don't know if they would ever meet that high standard.
Yeah. And that's why I say, like, to your point, like, do it right. Right. If we're going to do it right. And obviously the thing that can affect all of that is if the FDA actually says it can't be used, right? Because it wouldn't matter what they write on it. But obviously that takes a lot more than red dye number 3. That takes a a fundamental shift in kind of like what's allowed and what's not.
Yeah. What would you say have been your biggest challenges in entering this market as the first clean medication brand?
Well, awareness is everything, right? Whenever you're a new brand, you want people to be aware. But I can tell you, once our consumer comes aware, they're as loyal can be, because they want to give their kid something, they want to take something for themselves that is clean but effective. And I would say that more and more, it's also it's the competition. It's Tylenol has an endless bucket, right? And we don't, and but we've got to keep going and keep creating, and just, again, focusing on the consumer, letting them know that we're here and we're here to support them and bring them a clean product, has been what's really allowed for us to go from 0 stores to 45,000 stores, right?
Yeah. Did you start with the kids' fever product and then just kind of expand the line as you saw there was a need for it? Or like, what was the order of the products that came out? Because you guys have quite a catalog now. Yeah,
and it's a good question. We obviously started, more in the beginning. We were in the natural space, so more homeopathic realm of products. A lot of what we did was, we wanted to bring clean there too. It's all the same space of a consumer drug portfolio. And, I think there's consumers that prefer that versus this, and consumers that prefers this versus that, which, as a brand, we want to appeal to all consumers, and every consumer should have a choice, right? So that was the thought process there. And we wanted to be the first organic in that space. while we knew that we kind of really had to figure out how we could go into, a clean acetaminophen pain and fever product, a clean cough and chest congestion, a clean allergy product. And that just takes time, right? Because it's a longer path to just making sure that, everything's safe and you can bring it to market. So it was kind of that to pediatrics, and then pediatrics, we started to slowly now add on adult.
Nice. Do you find that, and I guess this is from my own perspective, I never really thought too much about this until I had a baby. Yep. And then I had a baby, and then I was suddenly like, oh, what if he gets a fever? What am I going to do? Yep. And he had a fever and it was mild, and he didn't take anything. He didn't need it. But I was like, what if he has a high fever? What am I going to do? And so that's when I was like starting to get into your product and your brand and that type of thing. So do you find that parents really, really care way more than just like an average adult for what they would be taking for themselves?
Totally. I think every parent has to be, thinking twice about what they're giving their kid, right? But what we're noticing is once that parent understands what they're giving to their kid and they're reading, the label and stuff like that, then they're like, well, why wouldn't I just, if I need it, take that for myself, right? So that's really where we're heading with it. But, if you think about a baby, it's just, it's such a small, beautiful thing, and our children are everything to us. And, we can deliver something that addresses the fever, but less artificial. It seems like the way that I want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. Do you do any education around managing a fever that's before taking something like this? Because I just think as a nutritionist and as someone who's very much into biohacking and holistic health, I have all the things I'm going to do for myself or my kid before taking acetaminophen to help with a fever. And there's also the argument that fever is actually really good for you because it kills off the bacteria and the viruses through the heat in the body, that type of idea. Do you do any education around that, even though it might not necessarily be promoting the sale of your product?
Yeah. So I think there's always, again, this is where it's kind of, Brittany, I really like to stick to who, a parent's choice, right? In terms of what they want to do. I think that when a kid's fever gets 103, 104, potentially 105, there's overwhelming concerns for some parents. I would say probably the majority of parents, and the efficacy that's been proven of acetaminophen and things like ibuprofen are significant to reduce that, right? So I think it's like you said a second ago, your child had a small fever. If the child's still lively and doing what they need to do, right? That's totally a parent's choice, and a pediatrician would probably say the same thing, right? But if a child does need to reduce a fever, there's not anything more efficacious than these products. But always, there's hot, lukewarm baths. I mean, there's so many different things, right? There's drinking lemon water or a hot tea with a baby, but honey's great, and there's so many great honey products out there. But again, I will never stress the importance of just good health and really a parent's decision to decide if they want to reduce the fever at the time or let it play out, and how they can address it.
I will say that having your products in my house gives me a peace of mind for sure. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to use them often, or maybe not even use them at all in the next year or something like that. But it's just that idea of if there were something to happen, I have something clean that I can rely on is wonderful as a new parent. Yeah.
Yeah. No. And that's what they're for. You need them. And I think, our thing was, this space is one that has not been challenged in terms of the ingredients used, right? And when it comes time, to reduce cough congestion because, a parent is concerned about their child sleeping, or, they have a bad allergic reaction and you gotta hit them with, some allergy medicine to reduce that, or a pain, then I'd rather them have an option to choose clean. And that's been the whole approach.
Yeah, absolutely. You are disrupting a big industry, as we've talked about. How do you think that the idea of clean medicine can expand into other areas?
If we can use the same binders and the same things that we put together for over-the-counter medicine that we have for behind-the-counter medicine, like RXs, right? That we have using in OTCs, it's all the better, right? We should just be pushing for what's best for the consumer at the end of the day, right? And if someone wants to make an argument to me that, artificial sweeteners and titanium dioxide is better than organic agave as a carrier, I'll fight that all day long, right? And if someone wants to tell me that organic blueberry actually crushed from a farm as your flavor is not as good as artificial blueberry flavor, that's put together with sucralose and sorbitol, I'll fight that all day long, right? So it's really, we have to look through a lens to deliver the efficacy of a product, but it's what comes with it should be viewed as, what's best for the consumer.
Yeah. Why do you think it hasn't been viewed like that? Like, is it just a cost situation?
I would have to venture that it's a cost. I think some of it is just an older way of doing it and not looking for new innovation and things that really, drive change in this category. But yeah, I would say it's definitely cost. Anything that's created, and doesn't come from Mother Earth is kind of, less expensive. So, yeah.
Would Genexa ever get into cleaner vaccinations or prescription drugs?
So again, vaccines is not anywhere that, I'm even interested to look into, but the prescription drug area is interesting. It's interesting because, and again, I don't know enough about it to discuss it because, our focus has really been on OTCs, and that's where Max and I have really cut our teeth and really leaned into trying to understand, the mechanisms of how OTCs get created. But I don't think it's that far, in terms of a tablet that was created on the RX side or a liquid that's necessarily created on the RX side. So could it be in the future? It's definitely something that I would never write off. We just have so much work left to do in this space and so much, people left to tell in this space and so much kind of disruption left to push and hopefully start to affect the status quo on a much greater level. So, I think this space is just, it's a massive space, especially in the United States and Canada. But, the US consumer really self-treats, a lot. And I don't know how it is in Canada. I'll tell you a funny story with Canada. I don't know if you know, but there was a shortage like a year and a half ago in Canada on children's Tylenol, and it wasn't available there. And Genexa was one of the only companies that could supply. So we ended up working with the Canadian government to supply to mainly Walmart, but most all your retailers. So it was kind of
wow. Cool. Good for you guys. That's huge.
Yes, because we didn't use the other ingredients, right? So it was quite a fascinating kind of aha moment of never would have bet on that one, but it worked.
Yeah. Because you're not as readily available in Canada as you are in the States. Like, I think you're on iHerb.ca here, which is like an online retailer, which I'm sure you know. But yeah, I was surprised how easy it was to buy your products when I was in Texas a few months ago.
Yeah. No, in the US, you can find us anywhere. We're not in Canada. That they actually gave us permission for like a 6-month period, and it was an English package because we weren't in French as well. So like they made all these exceptions, and it was really was
Yeah.
really cool. It was really a cool experience to work with the government of Canada to get the product done.
Interesting. But then you can buy it on iherb.ca. So you can buy it online, but you can't buy it in person?
Yeah, it's a
Weird.
wild. Yeah.
That's really weird, but interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. With the emergence of AI, right now and in the future, in the next 5-10 years, how do you think this is going to disrupt this whole industry and the work that you guys are doing?
It's a great question, Brittany, and I think we're all still learning, right?
Yeah.
AI it's absolutely fascinating. I don't know if there's any other thing I can say about it, but we are definitely as a company focused on what it's doing and how it can be used. The effect that it's having in the marketing world is quite fascinating.
Yeah.
And look, I think we'll continue to see the direction that it heads to better understand. I think AI, obviously from a medical treatment and helping people and maybe helping people with their health and staying ahead of health. I have no clue, but I guess you don't even know what you're talking to anymore at some point. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little scary, actually. But I do think it'll help in terms of the education piece of like looking up an ingredient and just having it spit it back to you, or like explain what Genexa is and how does it compare to competitors. And just for the average person walking through a grocery store, being able to look up products and just really understand it versus like, let me look at this ingredient list. These are words I can't pronounce. I don't get it. Like there's always kind of been that hump there. And I really think that AI can kind of just mitigate that and get people to the other side much faster.
Yeah. If you have a chance, go on AI after this and ask them to make a smoothie using children's Tylenol, and then ask them to make a smoothie using Genexa. It's quite fascinating.
Why? What does it say?
It might tell you that it can't make a smoothie with one of them. So just that.
What? That's so interesting. Wait, how did you even like figure out to look that up?
Our marketing team was playing around, and it's interesting. It goes to the point you just said. It's like ingredients and like how people interpret them, and and not understanding them, and not understanding if they're if you go and ask the majority of humans to read a side panel of a drug panel on any drug, it's hard to pronounce the ingredients. And if you can't pronounce the ingredients, don't you want to understand what you're taking? Right. Yeah. It's like, then you go online and you ask, and, it's a whole nother world, but yeah. So I agree with you is what I'm saying. I think, I think it will. I think, we all used to just go to Google and type in what's this, but now it's like you can get, pretty much inputs from everywhere that drive the result of what, the truth is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I will definitely do that smoothie test after this because I'm so curious to see what the recipes are and what it says. Do you guys have a ibuprofen product?
Not yet, okay. But I can promise you that it's something that we are constantly working towards. Nice.
Is that just much harder to obtain than the acetaminophen?
Yeah, it's a little. That's obviously a different drug profile, but it's it's a different route with the FDA, and just takes a little more time.
Right. So everything that you produce has to be FDA cleared and totally fine, I guess, because people are consuming it.
Yeah. So basically, if you fulfill the tests and there's two different routes, right, with the FDA. So, if you use an ingredient that falls under not to get too technical with science here, but falls under kind of the monograph system, then it's a different path. And then if you have one that's like more of a abbreviated drug application, it's a different path through the FDA. So it's just the direction you take, and one requires a little more time.
Right. And that's only for the US, right? Like that's not for the global market.
That's correct.
Yeah. Right. Would you consider entering the global market more?
Would love to. Just it's time and it's resources, and it does take time. Like for example, Canada, you got to go through Health Canada, and there's still a lot of a lot of documentation, a lot of bureaucracy and red tape that comes into it. So, it's just the focus right now is on the US, and we do play in some other countries, but not many of the European countries or Canadian countries.
Yeah, fair.
Canada's a country, sorry. But
Yeah.
European countries is what I meant.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah, but you can order it online, or if you go to the States, you can get it. So it's still accessible. How do you think environmental sustainability ties into this clean medicine movement?
So I would say, first of all, from a manufacturing standpoint, right? When you're producing with some of the ingredients I mentioned before, Brittany, you're putting that, into the environment, right? You're putting that into the air. So, obviously, as we continue to scratch the surface on, producing more clean products, you're not putting it out there as much anymore. We are fully recyclable. We use Sustainable Forestry Initiative when it comes to packaging. And again, like our ingredients can, besides the drug part of it, all, can go into the ground, right? And usually you're having to dispose. We still have to dispose in the correct way according to the FDA, but if that stuff ended up back in Mother Earth, it would compose.
Yeah. Do you find that there's been a push for that as well from the consumer side, like asking you for like being more environmentally conscious?
Yeah, I think there is a push from the consumer side. I think also, though, as a B Corp, as a company, we push ourselves to be better. It's hard because of the FDA requirements around, the products and how they hold in the bottle and the safety of the products in the bottle and things like that. So, we have to stick to a certain level of well, not a certain level, but the highest quality, that's required to provide a safe and efficacious product. But I think we're always looking into what else can be done, and consumers are always pushing, and they should.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty impressive that you guys are B Corp as well.
Yeah.
Because like you're B Corp and you have such a clean product and you've disrupted such a big industry. That's just like a huge dream that you and your co-founder had, and you have successfully done it. And it's just very inspiring. I know it's been 8 years, but that's amazing. That's no easy task.
No, it hasn't been an easy task.
Mm-hmm.
Or on camera, you can see I'm definitely gray from it. And it's been a rewarding task because while there's a lot of work left to do, Genexa is a brand that's here to stay. It's a brand that consumers are becoming much more aware of. And it's a brand that's basically disrupting the status quo and focused on, challenging the incumbents to just, create clean products.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is coming down the pipeline this year for you guys?
So this year we've got, some additions to the kids sector, but maybe, mainly just flavor profiles, but we just launched Target.
Wow.
And Target is a really big focus of ours this year. And we also have expanded at Walmart. So, it's a focus year. It's a focus year of a building. It's a focus year of, it's already started to be there's a lot of sickness going on so far this year. Just a real focus on telling the consumer where we're at and focusing on our current relationships.
That's awesome. I actually heard that Walmart is the biggest importer of organic produce now in the States.
And the biggest seller of organic product.
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to the whole thing, Brittany, of like, this is what the consumer wants, because retailers don't do something that the consumer doesn't want, because it wouldn't make much sense. But it's fascinating. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. Yes, Whole Foods obviously is a much smaller footprint, right? It's 500 stores compared to I think Walmart's like 4,000, right, or 4,500. But it's just fascinating that Walmart has every consumer, right? all walks of life, and that's still leading from organic. So, again, it goes back to my whole thing of like self-treatment. It's unfortunate that not every consumer in the world can have the benefit of nutrition and the benefit of, holistic approach and understanding and cleaning and just clean everything around them. But my hope is, part of the brands that are focused on this whole initiative and the conversation that's happening, that, we're giving consumers a choice, and they can finally choose, right? And Walmart, being the number one seller of organic product, is obviously saying that consumers choosing, and it's time for the rest of the categories to change.
Yeah. They're solving a big accessibility issue that was there prior to them, even just with organic produce, right? It was always like, let me drive to this store that has the organic produce and it's more expensive and that type of thing. But now, making it more accessible, more affordable to the mass public is huge. And same with medications like this. And I could only imagine what you've seen in the last 8 years of like having this idea and then growing it, because the industry and the demand has grown so much compared to when you started. Like, it must be so, what's the word? Like, satisfied or rewarding for you to be like, I had this idea and now everyone's catching up and we're only getting started.
Yeah. It's, when this whole thing happened with Red Dye 3, Brittany, it was like, it's like, thank God, people are waking up, and we've been pushing that message for 8 years, but we're not a big top Fortune, 50 company that has everything to push it out there. But, the consumer is a lot more aware. The consumer has woken up. The year after we started the business, MIT did a big study that I think I mentioned earlier, but just on the inactive side of ingredients, right? The ingredients that weren't for efficacy. And we reached out, connected with the guys that did that afterwards. And it was an aha moment, because it started to kind of move. And then, you had bans on certain things and not others, and people started talking. And now, it's really at the forefront, and people are talking, but it's because consumers care.
Yeah, I love that. Red dye number 4 is still allowed in Canada. So hopefully we follow suit with you guys. Yeah, I think we're a little behind.
You should be pushing that, Brittany. I think it's red dye number 3, but you should be pushing it like crazy there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think here it's just like, it's people like yourself. It's people like me that just started. I think here was kind of the food babe, and some of the names that really push this industry. But it's crazy what can happen by us.
I just did a podcast episode on it recently, and just learning that like it was banned in cosmetics like 30 years ago, but it's been allowed.
But it's allowed in our food, so we can put it on our face, but we can eat it.
And then give it to our kids because it's in candy. It's like, wait, what? How does that make sense?
No, it's a real thing. So
Canada
should follow suit, but as soon as they get everything figured out up there, maybe they will.
Tell me about it. David, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was awesome, and I learned so much from you. If people want to try Genexa and order it for themselves or for their kids, where can they do that, and how can they connect with you?
Yeah, so they can do it in any retailer: Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Whole Foods, Sprouts, which I know is not in Canada. So unfortunately that won't help. But Amazon, I don't know if that comes across the border, irb.ca. And then, you can always text us. On the side of every package is our direct text to me and Max. And back to you.
Wow. Is that actually you? Kind of.
It's us. It's the company. if someone ever wants to talk to one of us, you'll hear from us.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. And right on the side here, it does say people over everything in like big font. And I love that. Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I will link everything in the show notes, both for everyone in the States and Canada. I'm not sure about like globally, but hopefully people can get this and use this when needed, and just have it in their back pocket, because it's just such a peace of mind.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Biohacking with Brittany. If you're interested in finding the show notes or the sponsors for this episode, you can do so on my website, which is biohackingbrittany.com. Remember to follow me on Instagram, where I'm most active. My handle is @biohackingbrittany. And if you're interested in working together and you want to email me directly, you can do that. My email is info@biohackingbrittany.com. And I look forward to hearing from you and having you tune in next week.